Anything further that you want to?
No, those were my comments.
All right, Bill, the deputies and other personnel take home their vehicles. How does this benefit the county and your budget? Does it affect your budget? And would it be cost effective to have body cams?
Okay, you get into two questions in 3 minutes? Okay. Well, there's been a study on take-home cars that dates way back. We've been doing take-home cars since before I came here. And for certain agencies, they are very cost effective. They're assigned to each individual deputy. The deputy is responsible for the care of that car. And you're actually able to get that car to last 6 to 7 years. Now that we have the SUVs, they can actually go higher mileage, so we can stretch those out to be a little bit longer. So larger agencies that have a big turnover, like if you're talking about your LAPDs and NYPD, no, it's not going to be cost effective for them. But what they find is cars that hot seated where they're running 24/7, they're replacing that car almost every year, and at the very latest is 2 years. I can look to get my cars to last about 6 years is the max that we want them to go, and that's usually when they're hitting the 100,000 mark. Another thing we try and do is watch that we're keeping them within warranty, because once they get out of warranty, the costs tend to go up. So we try and make sure that we got our warranties with our vehicles. So it is cost effective for the agency, for the county. We have a rotation schedule, which we replace about 25 to 30 cars a year, which is actually pretty good. As for the body camera incident question, I'm not against body cameras. Body cameras have actually shown officers to be in the right more than they've shown them to be in the wrong. What I was against was the push for body cameras, saying that you can't trust law enforcement. I don't believe that. You can't judge the masses by the actions of a few, and that seems to be what society is doing right now, is they're judging all law enforcement by what a few have done. So, but there's a lot of things to take into consideration when you're talking about body cameras. You know, what type of body camera you're going to get. You got to develop your policies. There's costs associated with it. We did a little quick study on it, and it was going to cost us about $1 million to get it up and running, about $3 million a year to maintain. Because it's not necessarily the body cameras that cost a lot of money. It's the storage, and depending on how long you're going to store it for. And then you got to take into consideration privacy acts. When the cameras first were really coming out, there was no legislation, nothing on the books about privacy, and we're an open record state. So, take this into consideration. You call law enforcement because you want some help, whether it's for you or a family member, and you're providing them with some personal information. Well, your neighbor may not like you, sees that there's a law enforcement officer over there. Next thing you know, they're going down to the police station and they're asking for a copy of that video and they're posting it on YouTube. So you got to take in privacy considerations. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration when you're looking at body cameras. You can't just jump into it.
Ed, in your questionnaire and in-person interview, you shared with us your position on the car policy as well. Please share your thoughts on the car policy and body cams.
Understand we live in a different world. Criminals 30, 40 years ago are not the same type of criminals we have today, neither is technology. We don't get body cams because we don't trust officers. We get body cams to protect our officers. Because of social media today, we're always getting one side of what's going on. Today's law enforcement officers are faced with 3 evils: being killed, being sued, and going to jail. When we have agencies like the sheriff has that are not showing transparency, unfortunately what happens is society forms their own opinion before the truth gets out. So in light of that, body cams are a must to protect officers. Every year we have more and more officers being killed in the line of duty today. And I'll tell you, as a sheriff, I want to make sure that everyone, my deputies, both male and female, go home safe to their families. That is definitely a must.
Car policy.
Car policies. I think take-home car policy is definitely a given. I think it's definitely a great tool to have when it's not abused. My problem is this: we are still taxpayers. Okay, there is still a responsibility that comes with taking home a car policy. Same thing with the state. My problem is this: when you make restrictions on your deputies that have marked units and don't give restrictions to your detectives that have unmarked units, well, what ends up happening is they abuse the privileges that they have. What does that mean? Well, you have unmarked units that are basically being utilized for personal use, going shopping, going to Home Depot, going to Lowe's, and that's a problem. Why? Because the taxpayers are flipping a dime for the fuel. No different than the Beechcraft. Beechcraft under Cameron. How many times did he take that to the Keys to go home? There's records of everything. Okay? That's what I have a problem with. As far as the take-home policy, I think it's going to end up happening in years to come. That's not going to be a gimme anymore. I think what happens is when you start taking cars home, in light of what we're seeing on a national level, I think you're going to start endangering the lives of your family. I definitely have a big problem too with officers taking family members in their vehicles to drop them off at school and so forth, because that has a response issue tied with that, in the sense that if we are using county vehicles to transport family members to and from places for personal gain or personal use, and something should happen, there's a decision that needs to be made. Do we endanger our lives of our family members to engage in what's going on? Or do we drop them off and then have to respond X amount of miles or minutes away to react to an officer that's crying for help, and as a result of that, now he's dead on the side of the road?
Any
Oh, I
response?
had one time.
I got it.
No, that's okay.
Any response?
My take-home car policy is the same for everybody who's got a take-home car, and that includes from the chief deputy down to the last deputy hired. They take it to and from work. They're allowed to take it to and from school or training, and they're allowed to take it to the gym because they do encourage fitness within our facility. You may see them stopping by a store on the way home. I do allow that if it's not out of their way. As for what I didn't get to finish with the body cameras, that's one thing I do agree with Mr. Pope, is that it is a protection for law enforcement. I do agree with that. And we've been talking to some vendors to see what it might take to get it up and running. I might actually test it. But another thing to take into consideration, which is a huge expense, is going back to the public records request, because you got to be able to, there's certain information that has to be redacted, so you have to have somebody that goes through that video footage and properly redacts what's going on there. So that can be an added